It is incredible that in order to allow Pakistani clothing stores to better display clothing, this simple small workshop in Peshawar uses the ancestral hand-paste molding process to produce cost-effective clothing display models. The environmentally friendly tree, the workers will evenly apply the mixed environmentally friendly tree branches on the inner wall of the model mold. Since this mold is made of two templates, the inner walls of the two templates need to be finely painted in place to ensure that the surface of the mold is more delicate and smooth. Then the worker will use a cutter to cut the glass fiber so that it can be divided into small pieces of a certain size. Then the glass fiber needs to be torn into pieces and attached to the inner wall of the mold. This is because the shape of the inner wall of the mold is relatively special. Only the smaller size of glass fiber can adapt to different arc shapes so that it can be completely bonded to the entire inner wall. After the glass fiber is bonded, the worker will carefully apply epoxy resin on the glass fiber. This process needs to ensure that the epoxy resin can completely penetrate into the glass fiber. In this way, when the epoxy resin solidifies, it can form a solid hull with the glass fiber. And this material is the glass jars that everyone is familiar with, look relatively thin, but the overall strength and next, when the oxygenated branches are completely dry, the fixing bolts on the templates can be removed, and then the two templates can be removed separately to remove them. Mold processing is done to make the upper part of the model, the production of the lower part of the model. Then the workers will use the angle mold machine to finely grind the joints of the model to remove the burrs produced after the slow oxygen tree branches solidify. This process requires controlling the angle and strength of the grinding to ensure that the joints can be more regular and flat. The position of the feet needs to be: after the bottom is polished and repaired, the tree branch putty can be applied to the polished joints to ensure that the transition curve can be smoother and more natural. At the same time, the workers will add a fixed end seat of the upper arm to the shoulder position to facilitate the movement and disassembly of the model's arm. Next, a connecting end seat needs to be added to the waist of the model to facilitate the quick assembly and disassembly of the upper part. Then, sanding is needed. The tweezers are carefully polished with paper to make them smoother. After polishing, the workers will evenly apply white paint on the surface of the model. This process requires patience and carefulness. The paint is applied to the right place to ensure that the paint can completely cover the entire surface of the model, thus making a very perfect clothing model. At this point, the production of the entire clothing model is completed. Next, it can be sold to various clothing stores for display. The hot selling